Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Good day everyone, welcome to the course on next generation sequencing technologies, data analysis and applications. We have been discussing basic shell commands that will be useful for NGS data analysis, and we will now continue our discussion into data download and exploration. We will also discuss certain commands that will be useful for this data download and exploration. Okay, so, these are the concepts that we will be covering today. We will talk about file permission, right. So, since we will be working with data files, so there is something called file permission in Linux that is very useful. We will talk about system monitoring. This is something that will come a bit later when we want to run certain commands. We want to monitor the system, so that we do not overload the system or crash the system. And then finally, we will look into some of the basics of data download and exploration. Okay. So, these are the keywords chmod, top and vim editor. So, these are the some of the things that will come across today. So, starting with file permission. Okay. So, every Linux file has 3 permissions. Okay. So, one is read, second is write and the third is execute. Okay. How can you check these permissions? These permissions we can check by using something called ls -al. So, this ls command you have seen already. So, this is the list files, right. It will usually list these files that are there in a directory, and on top of that we can use these options -al. Okay. When you run this ls -al, you will see this output something like this. Okay. The first letter here is this minus sign. Okay. So, this means this is a normal file, but sometimes you will see this d in the first letter. Okay, and d means directory. Okay. So, we will see this when we run these commands a bit later. Then you see this rwx repeated, right. So, rwx, rwx, rwx. Okay. So, what is this rwx, right. So, r means read, w is write, x is execute. Now, the question is, why is it repeated 3 times? Okay. So, there are 3 sets of values, right. So, the first set of rwx is for permission for the owner. Okay. So, it means the owner of this file has read, write and execute permission, right. So, the owner can do all these tasks. The second rwx, this is for groups. Okay. So, there could be Linux groups and they also have read, write and execute permissions. The third set of rwx is for permission for others. Okay. So, you have these 3 sets of values for this read, write and execute. Okay. Now, the question is can we change these permissions? Okay. Okay, this is good, we see these rwx values. Can we change these permissions, right? For example, I am creating a file as a owner in the Linux system and I want to keep these permissions, right, to write and execute to myself. Okay. I do not want to give this write and execute permission to others. Okay. And this could be useful in Linux, because sometimes you have multiple users in Linux and some you do not want some users by mistake to modify the system's files, right, the files that are important for running of the operating system. If those files are changed, maybe the system will not work properly, there will be some issues, etc., errors, etc., right. So, as an administrator you sometimes want to reserve these permissions for others. Okay. And it turns out there is a way. So, as an owner of a file, you can actually do something like this. You can say the users, right, they might be able to read and execute, but they will not be able to write. Okay. They will not be able to change the content of that file. Okay. So, how do you do this? So, this means, right, if you see these kind of options, right, it means this minus sign or dash means that the groups and the others do not have write permission, right. So, if you see this, w is not there, means these groups or the others will not have this write permission. Okay. And the command that we use to change this permission is called chmod. Okay. So, change the permission, okay. And again you will have these multiple options with this chmod. Okay. You will see something called A, right. So, this stands for all. So, the permission will be changed for everyone. If you say U, right, if you give this option U, it will stand for user or owner. If you say G, it will stand for group. So, you are changing permission only for groups, and O will stand for others, right. So, if you are mentioning this option O, it will again change the permission only for others, not for the owner, not for the groups. You can also use these options plus, right, see signs plus or minus. So, plus means add permission and minus means remove permission, right. So, if you want to add, let us say write permission, you say plus W. Okay. If you want to remove write permission, you say minus W. Okay. So, we will see these options in a moment, okay, how they work, right. So, we will take some examples, and of course, we will then run this in the terminal and to better understand how this works, right. So, we have chmod a plus r file name, right. So, means you are changing this permission for A means all, right, plus r means everyone can read. Okay. So, plus r file name. So, this you are changing this for a specific file name. Okay. You can also for example, say a plus r w. So, you are giving read and write permission to everyone. Okay. And then the third example, you have chmod o minus r w x file name. So, others cannot read, write or execute, right. You are taking away permission, right. So, this is how the notation will look like, right, if you are using this chmod. And then you can also use another way of using chmod. Okay. So, I will discuss this a bit later. First, let us see how these commands actually would work, right, and then we can run ls minus al again to see whether the permission has been changed. Okay. So, let us do that, and we will then discuss other options with chmod, right. There is another way to change permission in chmod. Okay. So, let us go to the terminal now, and let us discuss, let us run these commands. Okay. So, here the files, right, we run this using ls minus l. So, let us just write ls and then we write ls minus al, right. This gives us the settings which permissions are there. So, you see like ls minus, simply adding this minus l, it gives you a whole lot of information. Okay. So, you have on the left side for each file, right, here are the files on the right in green, in the left you have this minus rwx, 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 right. So, this means everyone can read, write and execute these files. Okay. We have created this, and this is there. Okay. And we can actually invoke these permissions, right, if we want. Okay. So, we will do that now using this command chmod. You have also other permissions, right. So, here other information, for example, here you can see like what is the size of these files. Okay. So, you have for example, these files are quite huge, right, these are FASTQ files, and the one here is the compression, right, FASTQ.gz, and you can see how much storage space you save by just using this gzip compression, right. All right. So, let us try the chmod, okay, and we will change permission of let us say one of these files, one of these FASTQ files here. So, since all permissions are there, right, so we can say a minus x, right, we are removing this permission for everyone. Okay. Chmod a minus x. Okay. Okay. So, we are removing execution, right. Okay. So, this is executed now. Now, this is something that will change this. Let us again check the permission using ls minus al, right. So, here I do not think actually this has happened. This is probably because the directory actually is created as executable, right. So, one of the things probably we have not discussed yet, right, because some of the things you need to change this permission is administrative privilege. Okay. We will come to that in a moment. So, you will have to have that administrative privilege to change these permissions. Okay. And this privilege actually comes through sudo. Okay. So, the moment you use this sudo, it will actually ask for this permission, right, password, right, and that password has to be set. Okay. So, this is something that we use, and there is another one, right, which we use is called chmod. If you want to use remove this permission or do this for a folder, we use this chmod minus capital R. Okay. So, how do you do this if you want to do this for a full folder? Okay. Okay, so, this is the format, okay, sudo chmod a minus w minus r test1 folder. Okay. So, this is how it will run. So, unfortunately, because these files were created in another system, so their permissions are not changing. You probably see you still see that you have all these permissions here. Okay. But nevertheless, this is how you will actually change these permissions. Okay. I can probably show this in a server system where these files were created, and that will probably be useful if we want. Okay. Okay, so maybe we will do that later. Okay, so these are the commands you can try yourself once you have this Linux system installed. Okay. All right, so you can change permission in another way with chmod using something called numeric arguments. Okay. Instead of using this a plus a minus option, you can simply set permission with these numbers. Okay. And these are numbers that we use, and this is what they mean. Okay. So, 0 means no permission, right, 1 means execution permission, 2 means write permission, 4 means read permission. Okay. So, here is 5, which will be then 1 plus 4, this means you have read plus execution permission. Okay. So, we can sum up these permissions and we can say we'll give this read plus execution permission together, right. So, if you mention 5 in the command line along with chmod, this means you are giving read and execution permission. Okay. If you are using 7, means you are giving read plus write plus execution permission. Okay. So, you can you use these combinations, right. You can, if you say you want to give this 1 2 right execution write, you can just simply say 3, right. So, how do you specify these again for these 3 sets of values, right. So, it turns out you simply mention them one after another, right. So, here are some examples, right. So, you have chmod 777. Okay. So, 7 means you are giving read plus write plus execution option. Okay. So, and first 7 is for the owner, right, second 7 is for the group, and the third 7 is for others, right. So, here these 3 sets of values, right, like before, right, these are mentioned, and this way you can change permission for everyone. You are setting permission for everyone. So, when you are saying chmod 777 file, so this will actually change permission for everyone, and they will get read, write and execute permission. Okay. You can say chmod 755, right. So, 7 means again for the owner you have all permissions, but for the others and for groups you are giving just read and write permission. Okay. You are not giving them execution permission, if you remember these notations, right, 0 1 2 4. Okay. And similarly, chmod 444 you have read permission for everyone. Okay. So, this is how the whole thing will work, right. So, let us see if it works, and we can actually also go to a server system where I can demonstrate this better, where these files were created. So, how do you connect to a server? It is the SSH, right. So, this is where this is something we have discussed last time, right, and we can actually go to this folder. We can again navigate, right, using this cd command, right. We can see this for example, cd desktop, right. So, it giving us all the NGS analysis, right. This is where we can go, right, and we can actually copy certain files from other places, right, and we can we can demonstrate this data, right. So, for example, we can go into there is some genome data, right, hist genome analysis. Data sets, we have some genome data, right, and from there we can actually yeah. So, we have actually the hist genome data analysis, we have the raw data here. Okay. So, you can see this raw data here and they are all FASTQ data sets. Okay. And we can copy them here using this CP or SCP command, right, and this data is here, right, and we can check, okay, if we have this permission, what is the permission status, right. So, here you can see some of the permissions are not there, for example, the write permission, okay. For others we do not have write permission here. Okay. So, let us try and see if this we can change. Okay. Let us say we say 777, right. So, we are giving read, write and execute permission to everyone, okay, and we have run this, okay, and see if it has changed. Okay. Now, you see the difference here. Okay. So, earlier we did not see the difference because the file was created somewhere else and all permissions were given, right. So, here you can see this file permission has been changed. Okay. Now, let us see if we can set it back to something else. Okay. If we can say 755, okay, and see, and you can see immediately, right, these write permissions are gone. Okay. These write permissions are not there. Can we make it 700? Let us say only the owner of this file will be able to read this and write this or execute, and rest of the users may not be able to do that. Okay. And you see this permission is gone now. Okay. Only the owner has this read, write and execution permission. Sometimes you want to also invoke the write permission for the owner, right, and this is something that is sometimes advisable because you do not want to write anything by mistake. Anyway, so we have demonstrated, right, this chmod 777 or 755 etc., how they work. Okay. We can also try this now again with this sort of notation, right. If you say a plus x, so we are giving execution permission to everyone, right, a is all, right, and plus means we are giving permission, and then we again check what is actually happening. Okay. So, you see the x is there for everyone now. Okay. So, they can execute. So, this is the way you can actually control the file permission, all right, and sometimes this is useful. You will see certain softwares when you download and install these executable files, they may not be they may not have permission to execute because the Linux system by default will not give them permission to execute. So, if you want to set those permissions to execute, right, you have to use this command chmod. Well, we probably utilize them in certain instances. Okay. So, that is for file permission and how you actually change these permissions. Coming to the other commands that are very useful, for example, the top command. Okay. So, this is a command that we use to monitor the system, right. So, it gives us real time information of the processes that are running in the system, and it also gives us information about CPU usage, memory usage, etc. Okay. Also, this is something that is also useful, right. If you are running a code or a software tool, you do not want to use the the most of the memory, and maybe you do not want to crash the system, right, if you are going over the limit. So, this is something that is very useful to monitor if you are running some software, certain code. There is an alternative to top, which is called the edge top. Okay. Why do we use this? Because this is usually easier to understand and gives you a lot more visualization regarding CPU usage, right, how much CPU usage is there, etc. So, we will see like how this actually look here. Now, when you use this top, right, or edge top, if you see some process is going to crash the system, right, its memory usage is increasing like very fast, you use this command kill and the PID, right, process ID. Now, I will show you how to do this, but you have to be very careful, right. You do not want to kill certain process that are very critical, right. So, this is something that you have to be careful about when you are using this kill command, right. similar to rm command we have talked about, right. When you are removing certain file, be very sure that you are removing the right one and you want to remove it, right, because there will not be any backup anymore. Okay. And as I mentioned, so running some of these commands, we also need to be the root or the administrator, and we need to use this called sudo, right. This sudo command gives you the administrator privileges. Okay. For example, you can change now certain systems files that any other users will not be able to do, right. Now, again this can be configured, right, whether you will have sudo access or not, it's decided by the root or the administrator of the system, right. So, the administrator can give sudo access to others, may not give sudo access to others, right. So, this is something that we will see. Okay. So, let us first look at these commands in the command line, top and htop, etc., and then we will talk about the next steps. Okay. So, since we are here in the server, we can simply write this, right. We can simply write top and we can see the processes, right. So, immediately it will open a window for you, right, and it will tell you what are the processes, okay, that are running. It will give you some statistics, right, what is the memory usage, etc. Again, these are really big numbers and sometimes very difficult to interpret, right, and how much percentage of CPU is used or how much percentage of memory each process is taking. So, you have this process list, right, and the process ID. Okay. If you want to come out, you simply type Q, okay, and you come out of that. So, that is a real time monitoring of the system. If you type Q, you just come out of it. You said like we also talked about htop, right. So, we can run htop. So, one of the things I will tell you, right, htop does not come as default, you have to install it. Okay. In a moment I will show you how to install any tool, etc., in Linux system. If you run htop, like the lower part is very similar to what we have seen, okay, but it with much more detail, right. So, here you can see the CPU usage, right, how many cores, etc., are used, okay, and what is the memory usage now in GB, right. So, this server system has about 250 GB and the current utilization is about 15-16 GB, okay, and also other information that will be here, right. Okay, so, again to come out we just type Q and you will come out of the system, right. So, here you have these two tools for real time monitoring of this system. Okay, we just come out of the server and will again work on the system, where I will show you how you can install some of these tools that are not already present. Okay. Okay, so, kill, okay, I did not demonstrate because we do not want to kill any process that are running right now, unless we start something ourselves and then we can use this kill command. Okay. Coming to the installation of tools that we want to use. So, these are the commands that we usually use for Linux. Okay. So, this is again will slightly dependent on the Linux system that you are working with. It might be apt install, for example, in Ubuntu it is apt install or apt get install. In other Linux this could be different, right. So, for Debian or Ubuntu we use this apt install. If you want to install system wise, we need this sudo command, right. So, we need to have this administrator privilege. Okay. So, this is something we will do now. We will install this htop tool in this system here, where this htop tool is not there, right, or htop is there, but we can try again, right. So, sudo apt install htop. Okay. Okay. So, it is saying like it is because it is installed, it is not installing this htop again, right. It is just saying htop is already the newest version, okay, and it will not be installed. But if you want to install a program that is not installed, it will show you the process, the steps, etc. It will give you the full output. Okay, so it is a very simple step, right. For many tools in Linux, you just say sudo apt install htop as long as you have the sudo permission. Okay, so these are some of the commands that are very useful in brief. Okay, there are of course many more commands, many more utilities that you can use through the command line, but those you can use or you can learn later. This will be enough for NGS data analysis. Okay. Now, we will talk about certain text editors and data exploration, right. So, these text editors we use for exploring NGS data sometimes. Okay. So, for example, we have Gedit. Okay. So, Gedit will not use, or what we call Nano. This is another text editor, and the one editor that we will use is Vim or Vi. Okay. This is a very popular text editor in Linux, and people use it all the time for looking at files or writing codes, etc. Okay. So, this is something that will come up when we talk about these tools. Okay. So, let us look at Nano first. So, Nano and Vim or Vi that we will be exploring, we will not talk about Gedit. Gedit we have used earlier, but now most of the people will prefer this Nano or Vim or Vi. Okay. So, let us explore Vim or Vi a little bit, right, and or Nano first and then Vim or Vi. Okay. So, let us go to the terminal, right, and see how they actually look like. Okay. So, let us go inside this folder, right, where we have certain files between, so that we can actually open this and see. Okay. So, to start the editor, we simply say Nano, right, followed by the file name. Okay. Here is the FASTQ file, right, and we open that FASTQ file. Okay. And here it is, right, this is the file that is opened. Okay. Now, what it says that file read one part FASTQ is unwritable. Okay. So, that is okay, we just want to look at this, and below this what you will see is the different options that you have. Okay. And these are certain options and how you run these options. Okay. So, here for example, we have this x, right. So, you see this sign, but this actually means control. So, you have to use control plus x, okay, to do this. If you want to execute, you have to do control plus x. If you want to write out, right, if you want to read is control r, you have, if you want to cut or paste, you have this control k, control u, etc., many different options. Okay. If you want to undo, right, you have to mu, right. If you, so there are a lot of functions here. Okay. So, it gets a bit cumbersome because you have to always use this control and to do things here, right. So, maybe we will talk about, right. So, here is the file name to write, yeah. So, in which append, whether you want to cancel, if you want to write, you just pressed control O, right, we want to write, and then it gives you certain options, right, what are the options that you want to take, which format, etc. But we do not want to write this file, right, we just say cancel, right, control C, and it will come back to the original option, right. So, you will have these options at the bottom of this file. Okay. This editor is giving you this option, right. So, you can then actually execute, right. So, we do not want to write anything, we just want to, we are just going down scrolling through this file, and we can then exit using the control X command, right. So, this is a editor that runs within the terminal. Okay. We are not going out of the terminal, we are writing within the terminal, we can save and we can exit and we can come back to the terminal, right. So, this is very useful, right. You are writing within the terminal and doing all sorts of things that you can do, and you can come back and you can run these commands that you, whatever commands that you want to run here. The other one, which is the Vim or Vi, right. It simply write Vim and it just gives you, okay, what you have, and then here it will give you certain commands, right, colon q, colon help, etc., etc., right. So, if you want to exit, you have to write colon q here, right. So, here is, if we just want to exit, this is a blank kind of screen, there is nothing here. So, we just say colon q, right. And for if you want to open this file, we just say Vim, or sometimes simply we say Vi. Okay. We do not need to even write Vim. D12 is the file name dot FASTQ. Okay. And again, like earlier, like Nano, it will open a file like this. Okay. And we can scroll this file like before, we just up arrow or down arrow, and we can then again come out of this file. Okay. So, here you will see certain statistics, etc., and then there are certain commands that will be actually very useful when you talk about the Vi editor in details. Okay. So, to come out, the option is colon q, right. So, it mentioned, right, if you want to come out of this file, you just say colon q. okay, and we are back to the terminal again, right. So, these two editors are really useful. We will talk about one of them in the next class, which is the VIM. But it turns out VIM is really powerful. It has a lot of options that you can use and within the editor. Okay. So, these are the agenda, right. So, in the next class we will talk about this data download and we will explore this data using the VI editor. Okay. This is the again the reference that we have used, and to conclude we have talked about the shell commands for file permission control, right, and these are very useful when we are downloading software tools. They might not have the necessary permission to run in your system. So, you want to give those permissions before you can execute them. Okay. So, we use this command ls-al to check the permission, and then we use chmod to change permission. There are two ways of changing permission we talked about, right. We can go about a plus x or a plus root, or we can use simply the number system, which is the 777 or 755 system, right, that can change permission for all users at once. Okay. So, this is what we have talked about, and then we also talked about certain commands for system monitoring, right, for example top or htop, which will allow us to monitor the system, right, for system usage, right. For example, CPU usage, if you are running some program, how much memory is utilized, etc. And finally, you can also control, right, you can kill processes if you see they are going to they are going over memory and they might crash the system, right. If your memory usage is around 90%, 95% from a single program, you might want to stop that program. Okay. And we introduced the text editors in Linux very briefly, which we will discuss a lot more in the next class. Thank you.